Good morning. This video is about what the AQA examiners want you to learn in all 5 questions in language papers 1 and 2. But today we're looking at language paper 1. And it's really important that students learn what the emphasis is in each of the questions, because once they learn the emphasis of each of the questions, they can then structure very appropriate structured answers. So let's just have a look at the AQA paper here. So when we look at this is the new format and it's June 2026. So we're going to look at each question in turn and look at what basically is the skill that the students have to learn. So here we've got read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 9, answer all of the parts of this question. So what you're getting is you're getting 4 questions in 4, and you have to make 3. You have 3 choices, and then you have to make a choice. So what worries Pi about the hyena? And then you've got the 3 elements there. Its appearance, remembering what his father told him about hyenas, the noise it is making. Now, each of these actual statements are plausible. So it's getting you to think and it's suggesting what the right idea is. But what it's really telling you that if you haven't read those lines 1 to 9 well, then you're not going to answer these questions, even though it's only a 4-mark question. So this one is about you're being suggested 3 choices, you have to make the right choice. That is quite a skill. So let's go further now and look at the next question. So question 2 is not really changing at all. But again, it's giving you a set extract, mini extract. Look in detail at this extract from lines 10 to 19 of the source. And again, the question, how does the writer use language here to describe the hyena's appearance? So how does the writer use language here to describe the hyena's appearance? And then you have got advice. You could include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques and sentence forms. So this is about the way the writer uses descriptive language to show the hyena's appearance. Now that means looking and picking out quotations and then picking out appropriate quotations and then stating the impact of that, the effect of it on the reader, etc., etc. So number 2 of the question 2 is about describing. Now, the next question is the structure question, and this has been rephrased slightly. You now need to think about the structure of the source as a whole. The text is from the middle of a novel. How has the writer structured the text to create tension? You could write about, and here's the advice again. Now, structure has got to be understood as being the way a story is put together, how the story builds, how as the story progresses, more detail is introduced. But it's lots of elements. So structure is almost about categorizing what is going on. So it gives advice again. You could write about how tension has increased or decreased by the end of the source. So that is like a current theme that you are looking at tension, which is good. It makes you focus on those things. And then it says how the writer uses structure to create an effect. Now, structure is not by using lots of quotations. It doesn't mean you can't use a quotation, but the way you explain the quotation is not by picking out individual words and then analyzing the meaning and the impact. It is basically talking about it in a general term. So if tension is created by the sound of the hyena, then that would be a structural feature. And that's the way we would look at it. The writer's use of any other structural features such as changing mood, tone or perspective. So you're getting several elements in this about how writers develop and build a story. And it's literally building, it's step by step. It's not about telling the reader, it's about showing the reader. And many times in structure, the writer will create a negative atmosphere by using very negative words, or creating fear by making sure that Pi feels constantly involved in this possibility of danger. So that's something about the structure question. So you're meant to learn how and why the writer has structured a text in a certain way. Why has it been done? What's the impact? What's the effect? So that's question 3. By the time you get to question 4, you are beginning to understand the source incredibly well. So here is the structure of the question 4 and the skills required here. This particular question is more evaluative. So for this question, focus on the second part of the source, and it's always the second part. In this part of the source, the hyena could be seen as funny or threatening. To what extent you agree or disagree with this statement. Now, this comes into a level of persuasive writing, but it has to always be backed up with a support your responses. And it says, consider your impressions of how the hyena behaves. Again, considering your impressions is basically, as a reader, what we kind of feel about it. And don't forget, you are the reader. This is all about how well you have read the source. And if we read it well and we understand it, and we immerse ourselves in the story, we will be able to answer the question. So when it says consider your impressions, I would basically not use I believe necessarily. I would say the way the writer creates this impression is A, B, and C. Now, it also makes sure that you use a mixture of ways that the writer used. Now, this particular question then is the combination of bringing like the multiple choice question together. It's like bringing the language question into this, and it's bringing the structure question into this. So by the time you've got to here, you are now having to comment on the methods the writer uses to present the hyena as funny or threatening. And that is important. So it's now how you evaluate the text and how you're evaluating the writer's ability to create this story and build the tension, and to whether the statement is correct or in your opinion or not. But again, everything has to be backed up. And the way this is meant to be done is, you know, comment on the methods the writers use to present the hyena as funny and threatening. So you need to find the evidence again. Now, every time you do a question like this, always link back to the question and make sure you do, really hone in on the key words, or the protagonist in this case, etc. And this bit is you don't have to totally agree or totally disagree. It may be a part agreement in part of the statement. Do we see this as funny or threatening? It's not a question. It's sometimes a mixture that the way the writer writes is very clever, because the actual writer who describes threatening behavior of hyena also shows elements of it that are quite unusual, and that kind of affects the way we will actually approach the statement. So, and the last one is question 5. Now, this is a culmination of learning all these skills. You now get an opportunity It says a wildlife magazine running a creative writing competition. Choose one of the options. Either write a description of a zoo or wildlife park from your imagination. So it's giving you the choice of writing a description, and you've done description when you did language 2, the question 2. You may choose to use the picture provided for ideas. However, so you get a descriptive one. So if you go for that, you're kind of a bit more limited because you're actually describing, you're not telling a story. And then here it says, write the opening of a story about a human meeting an animal. Now, look, when you get to question 5, this is you showcasing everything you've learned about how a writer creates a story in questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you've analysed that. Now, when you come to question 5, you are the writer. Okay, so I hope this has helped you to understand what these questions are about. They're different skill levels. From the first one, which is only 4 marks, is getting you to make a choice between 3. And if you read well, you should easily get 4 out of 4. The language question is getting you to use the kind of methods that the writer uses in language and looking at things, words, phrases, language features, language techniques, and sentence forms. So there's 5 elements that you can use in that question. Question 3 is how the writer has built and developed and made the story very interesting and engaging for readers, and what the impact and how the writer does that. So structure is about using different ways of phrasing, like focus, shift of focus, change of focus, internal thoughts, dialogue being used if there's conversation, or it could be internal dialogue. You get the feeling when you're reading the Life of Pi extract, there's a lot of internal dialogue going on in his head, and the writer's done that on purpose to put us in the shoes of Pi. And then, of course, you at the very sort of question 4, you're now beginning to evaluate and weigh up what you believe the writer was trying to create, and was the hyena either funny or threatening, is not giving you much wiggle room, but you can have your own idea. And then question 5 is showcasing that everything that you have learned in AQA GCSE Language Paper 1. I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, then you're welcome to subscribe and see more videos like this. Thank you very much.